Today we are talking about Merlin. HiRez has released another one of their blog posts for Merlin specifically, where they talk about the character, how he came to be, and about some of his abilities and design choices as well. And that's what we're gonna go through, and as always I'm gonna add my remarks at points where I think I have something to add. Normally I can cross-reference a little bit more with data mining as well to see what information we get from there. In this case I'm not sure if that will be possible at all, due to the fact that the data mining for him is very complex with all his different abilities. It's just a lot clearer when you only have 4 abilities as opposed to the 3 different skill sets that Merlin will have. And with that, let's get started. Merlin, a closer look. Who is Merlin? Merlin is the most legendary wizard of all time. He is rumored to be part demon, but much of his history is unknown. Merlin is most renowned for the work he did with the Pendragon family. He helped Uther rise to power, and after Uther fell in battle, Merlin mentored the young King Arthur. Before he met Uther, Merlin advised many other rulers. One king was struggling to build a tower that would just keep crumbling. Merlin was able to prophesize the root of this problem: dragons. Few believed him at first, but a cave was discovered below the tower and 2 mighty dragons were found to be battling each other in the depth. This act of discovering the dragons brought Merlin much fame, and no one questioned his magical ability after that. He went on to become a master of magic in all of its forms. Most importantly, he is Smite's 100th god. Our vision. Merlin is the Archmage, the master wizard, the great sorcerer, and much more. He represents the concept of magic in fantasy. Most mages master a single school of magic and align themselves with good or evil, light or darkness. Merlin, however, is a master of magic itself and is not limited by these bounds. In his lore, we see Merlin use magic for deception, illusion, prophecy, death, and power. In Smite, we choose to interpret this mastery through a new twist on a stance-based kit. Usually, a god in Smite will have 2 stances, but Merlin will have 3. He will be able to command the powerful magic of fire, frost, and arcane. Theme: Master of Magic. Visuals: clearly wearing mystical symbols and powerful relics, yet agile. Personality: incredibly knowledgeable and wise, clever, at times sarcastic and conceited. Perspective: mysterious. Merlin will play a pivotal role in the Smite universe. His lore reveals he has experience with the dragons, one of which is currently threatening the world. Jormungandr, the world serpent, is closely related to dragons. We will learn some very interesting things about Merlin's past as the gods work together to defeat the serpent and stop Ragnarok. Not quite sure if that was meant to be worded that way, but that's how it's worded. We also chose to approach his visual appearance from a slightly different direction than expected. Merlin is often depicted as an older man with a long white beard, but we chose to deliberately go with a younger look on Merlin. There are a few reasons for this. First, we wanted to show Merlin as a more immortal being, free of the concept of age. Second, we wanted something more unique to Smite. Merlin's classical depiction could be interesting, but it's been used on many wizards in many games, shows, movies, etc. Some of Smite's most memorable characters are the ones we take creative liberty on, like Scylla and Janos. We hope Merlin will be viewed in the same way. Finally, Smite has a lot of old men, especially in the mage class. The game also has a lot of female mages and non-humans. As we build out our roster further and reach a number of gods in the triple digits, we will be making more decisions to make sure they stand out among the other gods in their class. Gotta be honest, I don't think necessarily a young male stands out all that much, and I really hope that Merlin will get an older skin that's more in the style of maybe even Guan Unicorn or whatever, or just a more traditional Merlin style. And I can also kind of see that they left out the specific part of the selling point of a young attractive man usually working a little bit better for any game, because young people identify more with him and want to be like their character, and then they play their character. That's just classic game philosophy with design. So I think there's a little bit more to that, but at the same time it's fine. I think with the design we go on here, it's still interesting in a way, and you can see a little bit more of that here. Merlin was clearly defined in the early stages, so we don't see drastic differences between the options. One element that sparked a lot of debate was his cloak. We opted to go for the classic full cloak to further solidify his traditional fantasy mage feel. We had taken some other liberties with the character, so the full cloak felt like a strong choice to fit his thematic goals. However, this was not an easy decision, and many devs felt that a more unique treatment would have other advantages. It almost sounds like whoever wrote the article, I think it's Ajax, wanted another choice, and that's what he's trying to emphasize here. But yeah, I think all of his designs kind of had some sort of robe at least. Not quite as long as the one that they opted for, but hey, I think it was already in that direction. His tunic was also a major decision point. All three options looked really cool, but we chose to go with the one that has a more subtle dragon symbolism. If you look closely, you can see that his cloth has a pattern that resembles wings or scales, specifically on his abdomen and shoulders. That cloth is fastened with connectors that resemble teeth or scales, especially on his chest. I gotta say that looking at these designs, a lot of them just seem to me like slightly pointy shapes that are not necessarily really resembling dragon teeth, but there are some elements that are clearly more dragon references. For example, on the back there is a dragon icon basically, and in the side piece of his armor on the shoulder there is a dragon logo as well, so he has some very obvious dragon signs too. And another interesting feature that we see here is that he has eye scars that are apparently not that visible until he starts casting spells, and when he starts casting spells then those scars will become more visible, which I think is a very interesting effect. The final Merlin clearly communicates his magical power, which would be supplemented even further by some elements that are hard to visualize in 2D. His hands will glow with the type of magic he's currently wielding, and he will hold a glyph of magic in his hands that also corresponds to that type. Merlin's kit is intended to give players a lot of freedom and choice over his magic types. This is achieved through his three stances. Arcane has his only hard CC and a high damage ability with medium range, considered in testing as his safest lane clear stance. Fire, high risk, high reward, with close range, no CC and the most damage, ideal for aggressive power plays and securing kills. Also sounds like that would be the stage for jungling maybe. Ice, long range, low cooldown, lower damage, and slows as CC. Great for a long range poke and dances around FG or GF. Even in early testing, we have seen that different players prefer different types of magic. Merlin flexes between a safe poke mage and an aggressive risky mage, and players can play him either way or a combination of both. In testing, Merlin has been mostly played in Arcane or Ice, with Fire being the go-to stance for mid-combat switches. In this way, he can poke his opponent, and if they get low, he can dive in on them, ult, and then fire two more damaging abilities to secure the kill. A primary goal for him is flexibility. We want players to feel like they have a lot of freedom to play the god in different ways. This is a great thematic fit for the most legendary spellcaster of all time. Merlin's unique gameplay features are 3 stances, Arcane, Fire and Ice, controllable through his ultimate ability, available at rank 0 but deals no damage. Ultimate deals damage and also changes his stance at ranks 1 to 5. A new type of stance change with a short time window where players can choose which stance he will changing to. Each stance features 2 damaging abilities. His movement ability is the same on 3 stances, and the cooldown is not reset upon switching stances. Let's take that in for a second here. On the Q&A, Ajax said that he will only be able to stance swap ever so often, so basically I think it was around 30-ish seconds or a little bit less, somewhere in the 20 seconds range at least. That means you will typically only be able to use 2 stances in a fight unless the fight is very dragged out. Now that could, for example, mean that you do what is described here and start with the Arcane or Ice stance and then go into Fire, but it could also mean the opposite. You could go in very aggressive with the Fire stance first, maybe with a blink, and try to burst someone down and then finish them off in the Arcane stance, which has hard CC, or something like that. But I think it's very interesting that he actually has less abilities than we expected, because you have a shared ability between all three stances, being the movement ability. What that technically means is that he doesn't have more abilities than King Arthur. He still has 8 abilities. 2 abilities that are unique, then 1 ability across all 3 stages, and the ultimate. However, the ultimate has different detonations, so you could technically look at that as different abilities, because I think they might have different effects to them. What I find very interesting is the limited CC that he has. Only 1 stance with hard CC, 1 with no CC, and 1 only with soft CC. And also how they interact in regards to their different cooldowns and all that kind of stuff. So it's gonna be very interesting what kind of builds will function for him, or if many players will just almost exclusively stick to 1 stance and then only switch over to finish someone off, or if you still feel like a stance switcher where you still switch stances a lot. You could, for example, focus on stacking a lot of mana and then spam a lot of abilities to clear early on by switching between Arcane and Ice for every single wave. Or you could just go for something way more aggressive and focus more on CDR to get more stance swaps. But there's more. 2 uniquely shaped damaging abilities. Inner and outer radius on a projectile. You kinda have to imagine that, I guess, like the old Ratatoskr dash, where you had the middle line dash and then the side dashes, or the electric effects basically with a specific acorn, only that you don't dash but it's a projectile instead. Then also 2 cones facing each other, however that will work. A unique type of CC. Ranged Instant Vortex. After a warm-up time, all enemies are pulled to the center. I'm not quite sure how that's completely unique, as ZiSotto basically has something like that, but I suppose it will work differently, especially because it's instant and because it's ranged. Merlin is Smite's 100th god. This is a big milestone for the dev team as well as our community. Smite has grown incredibly over the years. HiRez was a small company until Smite really took off. This game means so much to us, and we are thrilled to see how it has kept going strong after nearly 7 years and being played on 4 different platforms. Merlin is a character many people didn't expect in Smite, and that's part of what makes him exciting. We want to make sure the players who have been with us for the longest feel our gratitude. Jormungandr, Horus and Set will be the next Smite gods, as the community has shown their overwhelming support for those 3 gods. Thank you for being a part of this journey with us. Smite wouldn't be the same without you all. And with that, I just leave it at the closing words that they left us. Thank you guys very much for watching. I hope this was interesting and insightful. Merlin info is probably not going to be updated anymore until next Tuesday, where we will probably get his full kit if everything works as planned. And other than that, if you're new to the channel, feel free to smash that subscribe button. And a quick shout out to my current sponsors: Kenny Olsen, R-Hours, The Edgy Potatoes Edgy, Richard Thompson, J285, Xerbos, Frodolgy Gaming, Simchin, and The Walden Twin. See you for the next one tomorrow. DukeSloth, out.